This lesson will focus on teaching you to more easily distinguish between the troublesome verbs lie and lay. And like yesterday's lesson, I will suggest to you some strategies or some tips for being able to more easily identify which is the correct form. Although, unlike yesterday's lesson, I'm going to start with the second of the verbs. I'm going to start with the word lay, which, if you look at the definition that I'm underlining now on the screen, gives us the exact same definition as we saw yesterday for set. So I'm going to suggest to you that you think of lay as a synonym to set. That is a word that means exactly the same thing. It means to place. And just like yesterday, I'm going to suggest that your look for is going to be a noun directly after the verb, so that when we're looking for what is being placed, what we're going to find is a thing. In this case, a baby. In the second case of the blanket, notice that the past tense of lay is being used here, laid, which is also worth writing down or making note of. You'll see it on a conjugation chart on the next screen. But the past tense of lay is laid. So I laid his blanket down first. And I will lay the baby in his crib. I'm putting N's on top of those things or those nouns, the baby, the blanket, so that we can see that those are the things being placed. We're looking, don't have to call it this direct object, but it really is a noun, a thing, like in number 1, a tablecloth, or in number 4, a sweater, or even in number 6, my own hand that I placed in number 1, the tablecloth I'm laying. In number 4, notice the past tense is deemed appropriate by the word yesterday. So I laid the sweater. Put that noun in the wrong place, sorry. That's my verb. But I laid the sweater flat for drying. And then notice here it's even I had laid my hand on the stove. So it's really any time that I'm going to see a noun directly following not my sit set choice, but my lie lay choice. This time I'm going to use the verb lay. Conversely, I am going to be thinking or suggest that you be thinking of lie not as telling an untruth, but as being motionless, like we saw the word, having trouble getting my pen to write. Let's try again. I'm going to write motionless up here. Like we saw sit defined as yesterday. We understand that lie and sit just involve two different positions of being motionless. It's defined here as to rest, to recline, to be in place. But in some ways, we can think of lie as a word that is similar, maybe not synonymous, but similar to sit. sit. That is something that I can do on my own or something that is motionless on its own. And rather than getting into this idea of it does or it doesn't take a direct object, I'm going to point out to you that we can use those same look-fors following our lie verbs as we saw yesterday. Remember that what we were looking for yesterday, following our forms of lie, I'll write this again in blue, is that what we're going to look for is a preposition or a prepositional phrase. And remember, those prepositions or those prep phrases tell us where something is going to be motionless. Okay, we're not talking about a thing anymore, we're talking about a preposition. So we have someone being motionless, in this case Tori, lying on the sofa. I'm putting a P on top of that preposition on, or a P for there since lunch. So if you look at this example number 2, we have an instance in which on the floor follows our choice between verbs, and in the hammock follows our choice between verbs in number 3, and even the word down follows our choice between verbs in number 5. And so I don't imagine that in number 3 or in number 5 you'd have much difficulty in choosing your verb. I'm going to work backwards with number 5. A student who is ill may lie down, just like you would sit down. If you wanted to be motionless, you could also lie down in the nurse's office. Or Eddie in number 3 is lying in the hammock. It would be difficult to sit in a hammock, it'd be too wobbly. You'd want to be motionless, you'd want to be reclined. So Eddie was lying in the hammock. But it is something that is going to give us pause to look at number 2. And this is perhaps the most difficult thing to wrap our minds around when it comes to lie versus lay. That the past tense of lie is the word lay. And so the answer for number 2 is L-A-Y. I'll say that again. The past tense of lie is lay. So if I were talking about something that happened yesterday, and I were motionless yesterday on the floor, or someone went to the nurse's office yesterday, that student lay down in the nurse's office. The past tense, remember, of L-A-Y is L-A-I-D. I'm highlighting that on the screen now. But the past tense of lie is lay, which is why perhaps many two verbs mixed up. On this conjugation chart, you can see how we have these two words that repeat. Lay is both a form of lie and the word or verb lay itself. And then on the final slide of this presentation, which I think you may find most helpful, I've created a chart for you, much like I would have had we been in the classroom, that you can use to draw parallels between these sit and lie verbs that mean motionless and do pair with a preposition, and then these words that mean to place, set and lay, and are followed by nouns. It might make sense to take a screenshot of this conjugation chart so that you have it for easy reference as you complete the lie versus lay exercises.